Thank you, everyone. Who here has had a good lunch? Yeah? Everyone, hands are up, absolutely. I hadn't quite realized that I was right after lunch, so I appreciate that some of you might be slightly sluggish. Just a couple of bits. I tend to talk quite fast when I get passionate. I can see you, so if you feel like I'm talking fast, please put your hand up. I'm completely fine with it, but I just need to know what the audience wants. On that, we're going to talk about AI and ethics. And actually, should we even care? Who here actually cares about AI and the ethics behind AI? Hands up. What I'm going to say is that's not all of you. So I'm grateful for the people that were brave enough to say, don't really care, not really sure what it is. I'm going to help you find out. As a point of introduction, my name is Sonya Barlow. I do quite a lot, but it's all about inclusion, accessibility, and representation. In 2018, I started a brunch club because I felt lonely, and using technology, I wanted to meet people. I then converted that into a business. We now serve as an inclusion consultancy all over the world, upskilling over 20,000 people, working with some of the largest brands to strategically help people be more inclusive, whilst building a mentorship program. Outside of that, I thought, well, we are in the tech world and social media world, so I want to jump on social media. And I do numerous things to get noticed, because actually attention is a currency, right? And so if you're standing here on stage today, you have to think about how technology can work for you. But what I realized is I kind of started selling my soul. And that's what most of us are doing when we are online. Without reading the terms and conditions, we're signing away our rights, from the writing and the blogging to the imagery. We've had case studies in today's day and age where people's images have ended up on billboards, and they have very little to do about it, very little say, because you don't read the terms and conditions. Now, this talk is not to scare you. I'm not here to do that. We're already scared, right? Turns out we're already there. This talk is more to just give you reference points of where ethics currently exists in today's internet. Why am I here? I mean, truthfully so, I thought the same thing when I sat in the front row when everyone else had so much to do with AI, and I was like, I think I'm getting there. And that's why my talk is about someone who's starting or trying to figure it out and learning along the way. We're building an AI-enabled tech app, so if LinkedIn and Bumble had a baby, that would be me in real form. Ultimately, it's to help you with building your professional networks, finding your friends, having career conversations, and just making sure that you have the information. But my first question that really I'm going to ask you to set the scene outside of lunch was, who here uses AI? Who here uses Google Maps? Who here uses emails? Who here uses any kind of lift system? So who's here been in a lift or an elevator? We are all using AI. The first myth that I really want to debunk when it comes to ethics and AI is that because we're not on ChatGPT, are you not using AI? Actually, everything has a form of AI within its system. And interestingly, it's been around longer than we think. I went to New York in March, and I went to the Whitney Museum. I would recommend that you go there if you ever go and visit New York. There was an artist named Andrew Cohen. And what he did was he was actually using AI 35 years ago, writing code, and now creates art through AI. So it's not anything new. But what's new now is that many of us are going to the galleries and taking pictures, uploading it, but not actually crediting the artist, not buying their products, not actually giving back to the ecosystem. I went online and I thought, let me play around with AI a little bit. So I went on DALL-E and ChatGPT and I said, Sonya Barlow eating cake. It's one of my favorite things to do if you haven't noticed or you weren't with me at lunch. These are the images that came through. The reason I find that surprising is because I've made myself very accessible online. There are pictures of me, there are blogs, there is the internet. If you go and type my name, I have made sure that I come up. The image of me that's standing here today. What I am going to say is the image on the left, which is your right, probably doesn't really look like me. Kind of looks like the mum out of Stuart Little. Slightly, if you have seen that movie. The other one, I'm like, I wish I looked like them. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And so that makes me reflect on what is the input that we're putting into this ecosystem and what is the output that we're producing. And honestly, how do I go back to DALL-E and say this is not me and this is the real me? And by doing that, am I giving them more images of me? And therefore feeding the system. It's a confusing cycle, but it's not one that you can really get out of. AI in its simplest terms is short for technology that enables a computer to think or act in more of a human way. Now, I'm not going to go into the depths of it. Why? Because my colleagues before me and my colleagues after me have already done that, and they've done a very good job at it. I was there scribbling down notes, and I hope you were too. I want to think about the more generalistic lens, the lens that we are considering but not really sure what it truly means. It was Stephen Hawking who actually said AI will either be the worst or best thing for humanity. So I want to do a little bit of a vote. Hands up if you think it's the worst thing for humanity. It's fine, I see about 7 hands. I like the bravery. Hands up if you think it's the best thing for humanity. The rest of you are somewhere in the middle. Hands up if you're like, I don't actually know, and that's why I came to the conference so you could tell me where I'm at. I appreciate that. The reason I ask the audience these questions is, one, because we have shorter attention spans, thanks to the algorithm, so I want to keep you engaged, and 2, so I know where to direct this conversation. Ultimately, I'm here to serve you and add value, and that's what I think is really important when we think about any kind of presentation. There's 3 use cases that I want to go into. And this is maybe, well, we can talk about the best and the worst in this scenario. Spotify. So I am a podcaster. I run podcasts, I host them on video and in audio. I've put them onto Spotify. Turns out that Spotify has a tool that can now convert the language from English to Romanian, to Urdu, to French, to Spanish. On one hand, that means that everyone can listen to me and the conversations we're having. On the other hand, it means I no longer actually need to take time to learn a language. I no longer need to actually spend time understanding how people think, believe, and dream. And that, I think, is the con. I think if we don't understand how people are living and dreaming in their own language, then we won't really be able to understand society. A really good example being, my best friend is Spanish, and she has a very chilled out life compared to myself from London, who's running after a dream, and I'm not quite sure what it is most of the time. 10 years ago, I approached her with a problem. I was like, my friends have done this, they've sent me this message. She was like, it's really not even that big of a deal. And I was like, how can you say that? Like, I've lost a friendship like many of us have. And the point was that in her eyes, she understood that message very differently to how I did. And that's how language translates. And I think that's the beauty that we will lose if we allow everyone and everything to translate for us, including the headphones that we have on today, to some extent that people are translating. The second is TripAdvisor. Now, most recently, you might have heard, and maybe you don't know, but Google went and changed all of their search term strategies, meaning that people that were building businesses of blogs and writing and any content on the internet, they're now in a position where they've lost income. Why? Because you've aggregated all the data, similar with TripAdvisor and Lonely Planet. Now, if these big institutes are taking data that's already available online and making it their own, what's left for small businesses and people who are creative like us? And the third is Canva. Now, Canva, if you don't know, has come and disrupted PowerPoint. It's made a significant change. It's a free tool, and they use AI to generate creative assets. But if I'm being really honest with you, despite this presentation being made on Canva, because of the amount of presentations and templates you have, everything either looks really creative or the same. And I feel like what that means is, from an ethical standpoint, we're losing our creativity. We're losing our uniqueness. We're using the diversification that truly exists in solving challenges. And yet, we're really happy to be in a position where we're not doing anything about it. And I think that's the point, that when it comes to ethics, it's not just, oh, these big 4 companies, as my colleagues mentioned, are running the monopoly. No, but what are we doing to make sure that they're listening to us? What's our duty? What data are we inputting? And are we actually playing around with the systems to ensure that what the output is actually is true to us and our voice? Should we be fearful of AI? Show of hands, who thinks yes? There's a few. Some of the speakers, actually, so we'll have a conversation with them afterwards. Interestingly, I believe we should be fearful, but like somebody mentioned, and I think it was the World Economic Forum, the quote that was said just earlier, we're now in the intellect or internet era. which to me seems like we can't really run away from it. And so, in order for us to fear, we need to embrace that the reality and any reality is possible. And so taking a step back, what are the rules and regulations and the conditions that it's being built under? So some of the ethical debates of AI, denying the rights of an individual, the lack of individuality, which we've touched on, mass rollout little education, we've already covered that quite swiftly. Fake or real? Funding. Interestingly, companies are throwing tons of money into AI establishments and companies. And yet, there's not a lot of us actually wanting to go out and build something from scratch or new. And so the large organizations that have already been running the game are the ones who are truly taking over. Autonomous things. Who here is excited about a car that drives itself? Kind of. Some of us are like, yeah, that's going to save me a lot of time and effort. I appreciate that. But that's the kind of things that you used to see in movies, right? It's the kind of things that they used to show on Simpsons years ago, and you're thinking, this is crazy, it's never going to happen. And now it's coming into a reality. Lethal weaponization of AI, job concerns, biases in system development. That's one reason, or a reason, why there's a potential ban in the US when it comes to TikTok. Now, there's one thing that you will share on the media, there's another thing that will be said behind closed doors. And last month, I had the opportunity to go to the New York Stock Exchange, and a lot of the traders were talking about the ban. And ultimately, why? Because of the data that is being shared, of the misinformation, or the fact that it's so accessible. But at the same time, there are companies who have said, we're going to come and buy this. We're going to let people own their own data. And actually, from a standpoint of how does that work for the average person, most of us don't know. I'm not suggesting it's not possible. I'm just suggesting that most of us in the room are ordinary people who are trying to understand, how will I be able to own the data that I've put out into the ecosystem, and how will I be able to actually make money off this? This is not a technical presentation. You have plenty of those. These are the human-to-human presentation of, I understand what you're saying, but I don't really get how that's going to happen in practice, but I have no choice. This was a really cool YouTube video that clearly did not show up on the PDF, and that just shows that it's definitely a tech conference, so it's completely fine. 6 big ethical questions about the future of AI, Genevieve Bell, and these are the 6 questions she asks, which I encourage all of you to watch because I found them really, really interesting. One of the questions that I loved is, what is the intent? Why are we using AI? The truth is that when I hear another business saying, we are an AI-enabled business, I'm like, not another one. Like, it's so cringy. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, how are you actually using AI? Is it even developed? What shall I be concerned about? But at the same time, you have to take it forward and take it through. Especially for the students of today. I talk to a lot of university students and young professionals who get glitterized by, oh, they're using AI in their terminology, but what does it really mean in a practical day-to-day scenario? Who here thinks that AI can get goosebumps? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Can it feel for you? Will it have the empathy? Does it have the human touch? Show of hands, if you're brave enough, who here is on a dating app? This is not going where you think it is, but I love that. Very few to no people showed their hands. Okay, let me reframe the question. Who here would let a robot talk to another robot on a dating app for you? Well, that's clearly what's happening actually in the world. The founder of Bumble, Whitney Wolf Herd, has actually said the future of dating is AI. What they're trying to build in their systems is your robot will talk to my robot, and then our robots, if they really get on together, then we can go and meet in real human life. And we've actually started differentiating these spaces now, you know, like the robot space, the real space, the internet space. That's what's happening. But actually, though we think that this is the future, we have some of the largest companies in the world saying the future of dating, the future of conversations is AI. Why would you have to actively sit there and swipe and get to know another person? Why not just let someone do it for you? a chatbot, a robot, an algorithm. So can AI have goosebumps? I'm not sure anymore, because it feels like they're teaching it to have goosebumps or some kind of understanding of what we want, who we are, and what good looks like. Is AI cheating? Has anyone thought about that? I think if you're in academia, you might have, right? There's a lot of students who are turning in papers that are AI-infused. There's a lot of freelancers who are using AI-infused products to take it forward. Now, from a regulatory standpoint, it's only now that the plagiarizing softwares are incorporating AI functionality to understand what's actually come off from the internet. That's a point of ethics. How can we reuse and use what already exists without referencing it? But at the same time, for those of you who are into pop culture, who here has heard of Drake? Who here has heard of Kendrick Lamar? Great. If you haven't, let me give you the premise. Two well-known hip-hop, R&B, some might claim that Drake is, but we can go there another day, stars are battling it out. Why? Because Drake, who is a very well-known entity in the music scene, has used AI to reuse and recreate the voices of one, a star who has passed away, and two, a star who is now on the Just Eat adverts, Snoop Dogg and Tupac. Snoop Dogg has said, it's happened. Tupac's estate and family are now suing this star. But it's a voice tool, and it's a free tool for all. And there are voice tools now that are incorporating your voices, the voices of celebrities, the voices of everyday people, and creating fake assets, fake news, misinformation. Now, if you don't know the premise of that, or you don't know these three people, how would you know the difference? You wouldn't. You'd be like, oh my God, Snoop Dogg, a very well-known entity musician, has come on this side and he has given his verse, so it must be true. Actually, it's all AI related, or AI created. But I run a business, so imagine Snoop Dogg was doing my advertising. How many people would actually download my product? Misalignment, misinformation, is it ethical or is it okay? Is there a gray line? Where are we? So can AI be truly ethical? Unsure. Unsure because we're in a position where predominantly as humans, we're allowing the process to carry on. When we think about ethics, a lot of our colleagues before have spoken about the regulations that are there, the rules that are being built. I'm very fortunate that I'm from the UK, and one of the first world's AI summits was actually hosted in the country. The only problem is that not everybody that was meant to be there should have been there. The people that were called upon were not generally diversified in their own aspects, attributes, social mobility, education, perspectives, gender. Let's just start with that. And the outcomes, very few of us know. If AI is a tool and like a digital companion, which is what Mustafa Suleiman now talks about in one of his TED Talks that only came out 3 weeks ago and is nearly 1 billion views, then should the ordinary person not be there to tell them what they want and what they need and what the end output actually looks like? Should we not have to vote for products or for ideas or for solutions like we do for many other things, because ultimately it's impacting our everyday lives? Should we not have a say? Or should we? Is it not our duty as individuals to play on these tools and to make sure that we tell them where it's broken and where the bugs are so they can create the relevant changes? Or is it for us to go on the internet and call out companies and saying you're not doing enough, but we're not doing anything at all? Are we in a position where we are not educating ourselves or the people around us, but then complaining that we don't know what's going on, even though the amount of information that does exist is relevant? At times, it's not always right. Yes, we have to be brave enough to be analytical when it comes to AI. What are the ethics? What are the attributes? Who's building the products? Why are they building it? Who does it serve? Is it necessary? What is the intent? And what are the measures of success? All I know is that we can't go backwards. All I know is that we can't go pre-AI. That doesn't exist. And ultimately, it's been here for so many years, we haven't just realized it. We've been feeding into the algorithm through Google Maps, through any navigation, through translation, through any time we go on the internet, through any time we send mail. It already does exist. But it's up to us now to be in a position where we're not just calling out what we think is wrong, but really focusing on what could be right. That we are helping the system change and progress with the designing, and that we are creating efficiencies and creativity where possible. Now, I appreciate that I've lost you because a drone has come and taken my space. So on that note, I'm going to say a big thank you for having me here. I'm going to say a big thank you for listening and for engaging. And I really, really do encourage you to connect with me and keep the conversation going. My name is Sonya Barlow, and I'm very delighted to be here with you in Romania today. Thank you.